Hi everyone, I'm back with another recipe. Woohoo! Guess which one it is? What do you think? I've got some cinnamon. We're making cinnamon rolls. So the recipe that I'm using, I can't use the one that we use at work because I can't share that. So I'm using one that I found online that seemed good, but it's one of those that has like the videos that float around Facebook, tasty.com or whatever. So this is for vegan cinnamon rolls, which you can alter however you want. But the mixing, I watched the video and it just didn't make a lot of sense to me as an actual baker. So I'm going to change some of it. I will link to the recipe that I'm using, but I'm just going to show you how I would make it as someone who has made cinnamon rolls and other baking items a lot. So this is my awesome mixer. That's actually a desk lamp in case you can't tell, to make it a little bit lighter underneath my cupboard. Also, it's like 9 p.m. so there's no outside light. So we're just going to do the best we can. So this is my mixer bowl with the dough spiral hook, I guess you would call it that. In the video it shows mixing it with like mixing it all together with a wooden spoon, and I applaud them for making it accessible for those who don't have mixers. I get that. If that's the way you do it, that's great. But I have a mixer and I know how to mix it, so that's what I'm gonna do. This is my 2 cups of room temperature almond milk, so that goes in. And then we've got 1/2 cup of melted vegan butter. Ouch, that was a little warm, sorry. And then I'm doing, so this is my organic cane sugar that is vegan. Not all sugar is vegan. If you want to know why, you can ask me, but otherwise I'll just leave it at that. So my sugar's in there. And then, I actually had to look this up. It says an envelope, sometimes it'll say envelope or packet of active dry yeast, but I buy yeast in bulk. So I could not remember how much a packet was. So just gonna set this down real quick. So I looked that up and it's 2¼ teaspoons. So that is gonna go in and sit for a bit. They say let it rise. That's not exactly the term I would use, but we'll let it go. So that's 2¼ of yeast. And I keep my yeast, since I buy a lot of it at a time, I keep my yeast in the freezer. So, oh, I always do that, sorry. I'm gonna let this, oops, let's plug it in. That's a good idea. So I'm gonna let this So I just mixed that just to make sure the yeast was kind of incorporated. So I'm gonna let that sit while I measure out my flour. So let's move over here. I'm still very low tech. I know, I keep thinking I'm gonna like figure out a better way to do this, but let's be real. My job is not in filmography. So I'm just gonna measure out. It says 5½ cups split, so it's supposed to be 5 cups at first, and then later add the other ½ cup. The reasoning behind that I can't really figure out, so I'm just gonna start out with that, because when you do make like a yeast dough, it does depend on a lot of factors why you add a certain amount of flour. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. So, gosh, sorry. Okay, so this is my bin of flour, which I actually need to dump the rest of the one I just bought out. So for flour, I always do, this is obviously cups again. Sorry for those who prefer to weigh in metric, but so I just scoop up the flour and then scrape it off with the flat side of a knife. So that is 1 sec. just bought a new bag just for you guys, so you're welcome. So, and again, this is just all-purpose flour. And I actually mention in the story where she runs out of flour, or the part where she runs out of flour, that there's different gluten contents. That's 3. Sorry, I'm counting out loud. And this is 4. And I'm just gonna finish. 5. So there's different amounts of gluten content. Like bread flour has a high gluten content. Pastry flour has a very low gluten content because it's supposed to be fragile. So there's my flour. Zoom in, there we go. So it really does matter if a recipe says to use a specific flour. Self-rising flour, man, I don't even know about that stuff. Like, honestly, oh shoot, I'm gonna need that half cup. Anyway, we'll get that later. Because honestly, self-rising really just means that there's a leavener in it, like baking powder, baking soda, whatever. So I'm putting in, sorry, this teaspoon of salt. So self-rising flour is not something I have ever really used because it's so hard to regulate how much of the leavener is in it. So I can't say much about that, but the other flours, and actually there is a way, if you're ever in a bind and you need cake flour or pastry flour or something other than all-purpose, and all you have is all-purpose, there is a way to turn it into one or the other. And honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is a way. So just Google it. That's what I'm saying. So you can see that it's a little bit bubbly from the yeast. There we go. That means the yeast is active, it's alive, and it's growing. That's a very good sign. The sugar is what the yeast feeds on. So with the milk and the butter and the sugar, and now we have yeast, that is growing. If you get to a certain point, like I think I've only had this sitting, what, 5 minutes? If you get to this point and you don't see any action from the yeast, that means it's dead. Which is a really sad way to say it, but it's true. So, but we're good in this case. So what I'm gonna do is excuse me, I'm gonna start adding my flour to the bowl. And it's probably gonna get loud for a while because you have to mix for quite a bit. So enjoy / mute for a little bit. So here we go. So we can see again that there is flour stuck around the bowl. So I'm gonna stop and scrape it because that's just what you do. It doesn't just do it on its own, you gotta give it a little help. So scrape down the sides and around the spiral hook if I can. Okay, and we're gonna go again. So it's obviously not done mixing, but it looks really wet. So I'm gonna add the rest of that flour, and I might need a little bit more, actually, that extra half cup or maybe more. So we're going again. So it's starting to look a bit more dry, so scraping down again. that it started to form kind of a ball within the bowl, and now it's still sticky, so it kind of absorbed all that flour. And now we need some more. So I'm gonna do probably another half cup-ish, and we'll mix again. Again, it's about absorbed that, so scraping, make sure it's getting all that flour in there and all the way to the bottom. One more half cup, I think. We're gonna go again. Almost there. So what I'm looking for is a soft dough that's not too sticky and that's not too dry. The dough that you see in the video mixed by the wooden paddle, it is very sticky. And then at the end, like after the rise, you knead in more flour. I'm trying to avoid that, so I'm just mixing the dough as is until it's ready to rise. And then from there I can just dump it right out and roll it out. That is the goal, so that's what I'm doing. So you saw in the mixing that it's all come together in kind of a ball around the dough hook, but when I touch it, it's kind of hard to see. Okay, I'm getting flour all over my phone. So when I touch it, it's not sticking to me, but it's not super dry. So this is what I'm gonna start with. And I will add more flour once I'm rolling it out. But this is a really good place to start. So I'm gonna move my flour out of the way. Hang on. Ooh, sorry. Okay. So now, this is the bowl that had my flour in it. I'm gonna use this for the rise. I'm just gonna spray a little bit of pan spray in there. So I'm gonna take the dough off the machine. Get that off the hook. And you can use like a scraper or something like that. I'm just using my hands because heck, I'm gonna have to wash them anyway. So that pretty much came out pretty clean. Just scrape the last bits with the spatula. So now it's in my oiled bowl. We're kind of gonna get a good look at it. And now I'm gonna put it over in the corner with a napkin over it, and it's gonna rise for about an hour, and then I'll start a new video where I'll show you how to roll it out. So I'll see you guys in a bit.